Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to session number 281 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. Today we will focus on the second statement, the second comparison in the clarification of terms. Number 2, the ego and the miracle. Okay. Jesus is going to contrast those two. So let us begin. The ego, the miracle. Illusions will not last. Their death is sure, and this alone is certain in their world. It is the ego's world because of this. What is the ego? But a dream of what you really are. A thought you are apart from your Creator, and a wish to be what He created not. It is a thing of madness, not reality at all. A name for namelessness is all it is. A symbol of impossibility. A choice for options that do not exist. We name it but to help us understand that it is nothing but an ancient thought that what is made has immortality. But what could come of this except a dream which, like all dreams, can only end in death? So he's given us some pretty, forceful, plain statements. All right? Illusions will not last. This whole world of form will not last. The death is sure. And this alone is certain in this world. Everything will pass. I mean, in time, the rocks and mountains and minerals and everything will pass away. It's just the nature of form. It's the nature of the illusion. It is the ego's world because of this. It is the ego's world because in this world, everything changes. In reality, in heaven, so to speak, in the oneness, nothing changes. Nothing changes. It is the ego's world because of this. What is the ego? But a dream of what you really are. The ego is a thought that you are apart from your Creator. And it is a wish to be what He created not. Right? He has to throw that in there. It's that desire to experience individuality. I want to be separate. It's a choice. It is a thing of madness and not reality at all. Okay. It's absurd. A name for namelessness is all it is. He's really nailing it in there. It's nothing. Keeps telling us it's nothing. It's a name for namelessness, the ego. It's a symbol of impossibility. It's impossible to be separated from the oneness. It's impossible to be separated from the mind that thought of you. It's a choice for options that do not exist. I mean, it gets funny after a while. It's a choice for options that do not exist. We name it but to help us understand that it is nothing but an ancient thought that what is made has immortality. All right? So we name it not to make it real, but to help us look at it. To help us understand that it is nothing but an ancient thought. It's nothing but a thought. That what is made has immortality. All right? There's a difference between making and creating in the Course, okay? These things were, the world of form was made. No matter how magnificent the sight of all those images that are coming back from satellites that are taking pictures and rockets and things, and all the galaxies that exist, it's mind-blowing. But it's illusion. It's all part of the illusion. Right? We name it just to help us understand that it is nothing. Right? And we think that it has immortality. All those planets and everything else. But what could come of this except a dream, which, like all dreams, can only end in death? Right? And we witness that as we walk along this earth. All right, everything passes in time. All right. So paragraph 2, what is the ego? Nothingness, but in a form that seems like something. In a world of form, the ego cannot be denied, for it alone seems real. Yet could God's Son, as he created him, abide in form or in a world of form? Who asks you to define the ego and explain how it arose can be but he who thinks it real and seeks by definition to ensure that its elusive nature is concealed behind the words that seem to make it so. Right? What is the ego? It's nothing in a form that seems like something. I'll put myself as Exhibit 1, Your Honor. All right? It's a form that seems like something. All right? And he says, in a world of form, the ego cannot be denied. So in this world, it's the purpose of the world, is to pound it in that this is real, the ego is real. All these things are real. Right? All the other people, everything that you see, everything your senses report to you, it's all real. And that's the purpose of the world. Right? And it's our task to look at it and ask for the help in translating what we're seeing. Help me to see this correctly. All right? Because after a while, to use the words of Albert Camus, which a friend of mine suggested recently, after a while, the absurdity becomes apparent. And it can lead to depression, but don't make that mistake, okay? Just don't make that mistake. It is absurd. And Jesus says that in other words. He calls it a parody, and and it's all illusory, it's a dream. Right? And he says it's insane. It's the absurdity of the world dawns on us somewhere along the line. And that's the moment when we can choose. Help me to see this correctly. We go to our inner guide, Help me to see this correctly. Right. So what is the ego? It's nothingness, but in a form that seems like something. In a world of form, ego cannot be denied, for it alone seems real. That's the purpose of the world, to prove it to us. Yet, paragraph 2, sentence 4, yet could God's Son, as he created him, abide in form or in a world of form? I mean, rhetorical question. The answer is no. Right? As you were created, spirit, how could you exist in a world of form? You have no form. You're formless. In the milieu of everything. But that's what frightens us. That's what keeps us away from the absolute truth. Is that idea of being formless. We think that's equivalent to death and disappearing and becoming nothing. As Ken once said, becoming a nebbish. So in a world of form, the ego cannot be denied. Yet could God's Son, as he created him, abide in form or in a world of form? No. But whoever asks you to define the ego and explain how it arose, how did this happen? It can be but he who thinks that the ego is real. Only someone who asks us to define the ego is someone who thinks that it's real. And Jesus said in that a little while ago, it's a statement in the form of a question. The statement is, I think the ego is real. Could you explain it to me? What is it? How did it happen? Right? So that's why he always says you'll never get a satisfactory answer to that. So he says, so look for the experience. Right? So who asks you to define the ego and explain how it arose can be he who thinks it, but he who thinks it's real, and seeks by definition to ensure that its elusive nature is concealed behind the words that seem to make it so. So the words will seem to make it so if I explain, how did this happen? Or explain, what exactly is the ego? You know, how could this have happened? So he says, so the ego's elusive nature will hide behind those words. And that elusive nature is that it is nothing. It is nothing. It's nothingness, but in a form that seems like something. Paragraph 3, there is no definition for a lie that serves to make it true. Right? Nor can be a truth that lies conceal effectively. The ego's unreality is not denied by words, nor is its meaning clear because its nature seems to have a form. Who can define the undefinable? And yet, there is an answer even here. Right? So he says there is no definition for a lie that can make it real. So I can't define the ego. I will never make it real because it's only it's the definition of a lie. Nor can there be a truth that lies conceal effectively. And the truth is that we are one. We never separated. We never separated from the mind of God. We never separated from the oneness. Right? So he says nor can there be truth that lies conceal. So there can be no lies that conceal that. effectively. Sooner or later, you'll come to realize. Right? So who can define the undefinable? And yet, there is an answer even here. Paragraph 4. We cannot really make a definition for what the ego is, but we can say what it is not. And this is shown to us with perfect clarity. It is from this that we deduce all that the ego is. Look at its purpose, or look at its opposite, and you can see the only answer that is meaningful. Okay? So he says we can't define the ego, but we can say what it is not. All right? So look at its opposite, and you can see the only answer that is meaningful. And he's going to tell you what the opposite is. The opposite is the miracle, right? The clarity of the oneness. Right? And you see all that the ego is not. Right? You experience all that the ego is not. Paragraph 5. The ego is opposite in every way, in origin, effect, and consequence, we call a miracle. And here we find all that is not the ego in this world. Here is the ego's opposite, and here alone we look on what the ego was, for here we see all that it seemed to do, and cause and its effects must still be one. So here's the ego's opposite, and here alone we look on what the ego was. For here we see all that it seemed to do and cause, and its effects must still be one. Right? So the miracle is that corrected perception. Right? And then you see differently. And you see all that the ego was, and you continue to choose against it because you'd rather have the experience of the light, the experience of the love and the oneness to help you translate what your senses are reporting to you. So here's the ego's opposite, all right? Paragraph 5, sentence 3. The miracle. And here alone we look on what the ego was. For here we shall see all that it seemed to do and cause, and its effects must still be one. Paragraph 6. Where there was darkness, now we see the light. What is the ego? What the darkness was. Where is the ego? It's where the darkness was. What is it now, and where can it be found? Nothing and nowhere. Now the light has come. Its opposite has gone without a trace. Where evil was, there now is holiness. What is the ego? What the evil was. Where is the ego? In an evil dream that but seemed real while you were dreaming it. Where there was crucifixion stands God's Son. What is the ego? Who has need to ask? Where is the ego? Who has need to seek for an illusion now that dreams are gone? Right? It's very succinctly, almost with the compactness of haiku, Jesus, he says, when you choose the miracle, when you choose to see correctly, help me, you ask your inner guide, right? You acknowledge what you're seeing and bring it inside and ask for a retranslation. Say you're having a difficult time with a person, right? And you really hate this person. You could feel the rage every time you see them. Right? That's a good time to ask yourself, do I want to stay in a world of rage? Do I want to stay in a world of attack, defense? Right. So we come to the right mind and we say, help me to see this. I'm willing to see it correctly. I'm willing to experience peace. And I'm willing to experience peace for everyone. Right? Even that other. Right? I'm willing to see them correctly. I'm willing to see past their ego act, their sidewalk act, their song and dance. I'm willing to see past that. That's approaching the light. That's asking the light to shine on it. And then he says, where there was darkness, now we see the light. It's paragraph 6. So he says, so what is the ego? It's what the darkness was. It's that hatred, that anger, that chaos, that attack, the defense. Because when you attack something, you got to fear reprisal, which is the original. I don't know why I point up there, but it's the original thought. I attacked God. I attacked the oneness. Now I live in the reprisal and the fear of reprisal. That's why we're afraid to approach the truth. We think the reprisal is going to be there. You're blasted into nothingness. You're obliterated. Phasers on stun. Or whatever the next setting was, I forget. So, what's the ego? It's what the darkness was. Once your mind is changed, you realize what the ego was. And where is it? So where's the ego? It's where the darkness was. What is it now and where can it be found? It is nothing and it is nowhere. Once we have come into the light, it's nothing and nowhere. Now the light has come. Its opposite has gone without a trace. So once we have that experience of the holy instant, the ego is gone. And even in our incremental experiences of holy instant, and that holy instant is when you come to the right mind, no matter how long you stay there. Like Jesus says, how long is an instant? All right, who knows? It's up to you. But when you come to the right mind and you're willing to see correct, the ego is gone in that instant. And so and we experience as we run back to the ego because we get afraid of the reprisal. We think we're going to get obliterated. And little by little, that fear diminishes also until we get to the point where just melting into the mind of God is not a problem. But as I say, Some of us take longer than others to get there. All right. So where is the ego? It's in an evil dream that but seemed real while you were dreaming it. Right? And this ego dream, this evil dream, where there was crucifixion, right? Where there was crucifixion, now stands God's Son. Right? And what is the ego? This is who need to ask. Sounds very New Yorker. What is the ego? Who has need to ask? Where is the ego? Who has need to seek for an illusion now that dreams are gone? All right? So you'll have no need for these questions when you experience the light, the truth. And it can be, it is experienced here in form. We experience it, we detach from the form momentarily. And the more and more we do that, the more we like it, the more we want to do it, the longer we stay in that holy instant until we reach the point where, in the Course they call it the real world, where you're still in form, but the form reflects the oneness. The form reflects the innocence and the love. And you become, as the Beatles would say, the fool on the hill. Although you're not a fool, you're just smiling at the world. So who has need to ask for an illusion now that dreams are gone? Paragraph 7. What is a miracle? It's a dream as well. But look at all the aspects of this dream, and you will never question anymore. Look at the kindly world you see extend before you as you walk in gentleness. Look at all the helpers along the way you travel, happy in the certainty of heaven and the surety of peace. And look an instant, too, on what you left behind at last and finally passed by. That's the experience of the aforementioned fool on the hill. All right? He says the miracle is also a dream. It's part of the dream. Right? Because it's not knowledge. It corrects perception, right? But it hasn't reached the realm of knowledge. But it's not long before. Because you look at all the aspects of this dream and you will never question anymore. Right? You will look at the world, look at the kindly world you see. When perceptions are corrected, you will see a kindly world. And it will extend before you as you walk in gentleness. And you will see helpers all along the way, happy in the certainty of heaven and the surety of peace. That's what the holy instant brings us. The surety of peace. You're sure that this is not real. And you're sure that you belong in the oneness. Right. The certainty of heaven and the surety of peace. And you look an instant too on what you left behind at last and finally passed by. You just look back and go, yeah, that was silly. And you've passed it by. And what we're looking on, he says in paragraph 8, this was the ego. All the cruel hate, the need for vengeance, and the cries of pain the fear of dying and the urge to kill, the brotherless illusion and the self that seemed alone in all the universe. This terrible mistake about yourself, the miracle corrects, as gently as a loving mother sings her child to rest. Is not a song like this what you would hear? Would it not answer all your thought to ask, and even make the question meaningless? Would it not answer all you thought to ask, and make the question meaningless? It's a rather succinct definition of how we perceive this world. This was the ego. He's talking about after we have reached the light, we look back for an instant, not tempted by anything, but we realize this was the ego. And this is what goes on in this world. All the cruel hate, the need for vengeance and the cries of pain, the fear of dying and the urge to kill, the brotherless illusion and the self that seemed alone in all the universe. Right? Really? Don't most of us experience those things? All right? We can be, especially now in this age of vast amounts of social media, as they call it. We just get bombarded with images. Bombarded with images of cruelty and hate, and there's thoughts of vengeance. It's just terrible. And don't most of us experience the fear of dying and the urge to kill, although we'd say, oh no, not me. Sometimes you just wish there were people that weren't there. All right? And sometimes we just say, well, we'll let God take care of it when he dies. Let God condemn him to hell. All right? So there's the urge to kill. And the illusion of brotherlessness that we're here all by ourselves. Right? And the self that seemed alone in all the universe. All right? I know there was, at least, well, I know there's a number of times, believe me. But one time specifically, I said out loud, is there no one who knows me? Is there no one who sees me, who knows who I am? Obviously a low point in my journey, all right? But that's the experience of what he's talking about here, that brotherless illusion and the self that seemed alone in all the universe. Right? I felt there was no one I could relate to. Right? No one who could just give me a helping hand. And then he says in sentence 2 in paragraph 8, this terrible mistake about yourself. All right, so that was a terrible mistake. I was thinking about myself. He goes, this terrible mistake about yourself, the miracle corrects. The miracle corrects. I know so many times in my journey, so to speak, I asked Jesus, help me to see myself correctly. All right? Because you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That's my experience. And when I take that step back, I need to ask Jesus, help me to see myself correctly, because the self-hatred is just enormous. It's just enormous. And he says, that's the terrible mistake about yourself. And the miracle corrects it as gently as a loving mother sings her child to rest. He says, isn't this the song you would like to hear? Is not a song like this what you would hear? Would it not answer all you thought to ask? Is there no one here that I can relate to? All right, the song would answer every question like that. And even make the question meaningless. Because once you are aware of it, once you're aware of the light, the oneness, the innocence, there's no need for the question. The question is meaningless. Because you become aware. The surety of heaven. Right? The surety of heaven. The certainty of heaven and the surety of peace. Makes the question moot, as they say. But it goes beyond moot to meaningless. Okay. So what he's doing here is, in this quote unquote clarification of ego and miracle, is once again telling us that the prescription always applies. Look at the ego, decide if you want it or not, and if you don't want it, you come inside to your guide and ask, help me to correct my perception. I'm willing. I'm willing to see it differently. Any way you want to put it, the words don't matter. Remember, he's telling us, words are, ego constructs. And the Holy Spirit knows what's in your mind. So, just put that willingness into whatever terms you want. And you'll see it works. Right? Just keep at it. Keep at it. So this light, he says, would it not answer all you thought to ask? The song, all right? The song, the gentle song that the mother sings to calm the child. All right. Would it not answer all you thought to ask, and even make the question meaningless? Your questions have no answer. Paragraph 9. Your questions have no answer, being made to still God's voice, which asks of everyone one question only. Are you ready yet to help me save the world? Ask this instead of what the ego is, and you will see a sudden brightness cover up the world that the ego made. No miracle is now withheld from anyone. The world is saved from you, from what you thought it was. And what it is wholly uncondemned and wholly pure. Right? So he reiterates, your questions have no answer because they were made to quiet God's voice, to keep it still, the song that the Father sings to the Son and the Son sings to the Father. These questions were made to quiet that voice, to drown it out. The ego's raucous shrieking, as he says in one part of the text. It's meant to drown out. It's made to still God's voice. Right? And the Holy Spirit is a symbol of God's voice. Right? The memory of God. The memory of our connection to God. Right? He says, so your questions have no answer. They're made to drown out God's voice. And God's voice asks everyone one question only. Are you ready yet to help me save the world? Right? So he says, ask this instead of what the ego is. Ask yourself, am I ready to save the world? And it's not an arrogant question, because there's only one mind, right? There's no billions of parts. There's only one mind that needs to be healed, and that saves the world. Right? Ask this instead of what the ego is, and you will see a sudden brightness cover up the world that the ego made. Right? Cover up the world the ego made. Right? That is the experience of the real world. Right? You may still be in form, and people may see you and say things to you, but you interpret everything differently. You see the world through a sudden brightness. Right? And now he says, no miracle. Now, no miracle is withheld from anyone. Right? So everyone, we see everyone is included. No miracle is now withheld from anyone. We see the correct perception of everyone. And that includes everyone. Even those people that we, a few sentences ago, had the urge to eliminate, so to speak. Or as they say in the vernacular, the people who wish to see get got. That's the ego stuff. So now we see everything in that sudden brightness, because we keep coming back to the right mind, to your inner guide, and being willing to be corrected. I'm willing to see correctly. Now the world is saved from what you thought it was. Right? The world is saved from what I thought it was. I thought it was this place where you're just so alone in the universe, where there's all cruelty and hatred and retribution and vengeance, and people that are in pain, people that are dying. So that's what you thought the world was. The world is saved from what you thought it was, because now you've come to the light. And what it is wholly uncondemned and wholly pure. That's what you will see. You will be looking out on a world of form that is wholly pure and uncondemned, totally innocent. It will reflect those things to you. Because you will no longer be projecting, excuse me, your own guilt. Paragraph 10. The miracle forgives, the ego damns. Neither need be defined except by this. Yet could a definition be more sure or more in line with what salvation is? Problem and answer lie together here. And having met at last, the choice is clear. Who chooses hell when it is recognized? And who who would not go on a little while when it is given him to understand the way is short and heaven is his goal? All right. So he says, look, it's pretty simple. The miracle forgives, the ego damns. All right? And he says, no more explanation is needed, really. Neither need be defined except by this. The miracle forgives, the ego damns. So he says, you don't need another definition, but no definition could be more sure or more in line with what salvation is. The forgiveness brings on salvation, the freedom from the ego. So problem and answer lie together here. And having met at last, the choice is clear. Right? Once you realize, once you see what the ego is, he says the choice is clear. Who chooses hell? Right? Who chooses hell when it is recognized? Right? So who chooses all that horrible stuff about the ego world when it is recognized? And we're not talking about leaving. We're not talking about suicide. Right? We're talking about acknowledging, oh yeah, there must be a different way. It must be a better way to see things. And we go and ask, help me to see correctly. That's the answer. To realize it's absurd, and then realize you have an alternative. All right? Who chooses hell when it's recognized? And he says, and who would not go on a little bit longer when it is given him to understand the way is short and heaven is his goal? So once you have that holy instant, that awareness, right? As he says, the certainty of heaven and the surety of peace, and you are able to see the purity, the innocence reflected from everything in the world. He said, who would not go on a little bit, right, in the real world? Who would not traverse the same streets? Right? Going on a little while, because you understand. You understand that the way is short, and heaven is the goal. The oneness is the goal. The infinite oneness, the infinite security. Right? That's the goal. And we ask for help along the way, and that's how. So who would not go on a little while when it is given to understand the way is short? So we ask for help along the way, and this way we more and more gain the awareness that the way is short and heaven is the goal. And the goal is guaranteed. Once the journey has begun, the end is certain. All right? All right. So we had to give all those little choices in a very New York kind of way. Right? What is the ego? Who need to ask? Alrighty. Tomorrow in New York City is St. Patrick's Day. That's hence the wearing of the green. This is actually green. Very deep, dark green. And all right, I leave you with that. Choices. The idea is to look on the absurdity, realize it's absurd, and don't let it depress you. Realize you have an alternative, right? You have the memory of God in your mind. Go to the memory of God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, the symbol of the memory of God. and any symbol that represents the unconditional love. And let them be your guide. There's no need to be despondent. Alrighty then. We'll see you on the next section. Bye now.